Greetings Guardians, my name is Bife here. So normally I don't make a video about a topic that I've covered in the last 2 or 3 videos pretty extensively, but this time I'm going to make an exception, partially because I think this topic is one of the most important I might cover all year. It might also be one of the most important kind of topics that I've covered for a very long time on this channel because it involves the entire nature of the game, and also because of the fact that this is just a very fluid and evolving situation. More dialogue and lore is coming out in Act 2 of Heresy, and it keeps changing this fundamental topic. For those of you who don't know, last video I talked about how the Echo of Navigation told us that there was something stirring within the deep. The line in question is as follows.
We are not alone in the deep. Something I cannot see stands between the Winnower and the Taken. Carve these offerings free from their weakness, King, before something else does.
Now, this on its own was fascinating enough that I made an entire previous video talking about it, and talking about who or what this new presence between the Taken and the Winnower might be. If you want to go ahead and get my not so up-to-date thoughts on that, that's going to be linked down below in the description, but it is also the last Destiny video after this one that I published. Check the playlist for Heresy if you have missed that as well. But as Destiny Lore Vault and the rest of the community had started digging their teeth into Act 2, more information started to get uncovered, and the situation has begun to evolve. Suffice to say, things are escalating wildly to the point where I'm not looking at this unknown new master of the Taken as just another force of the deep. The way that Oryx is talking about it, this thing is potentially not just a claimant to the title of Taken King, but might even be usurping the territory and power of the Winnower itself. And if that isn't giving you alarm bells, well, yeah, it should be. To give everyone an idea of how dramatic that statement really is, this unknown thing has been dredged up from the depths of hell and is starting to claim Hell's Lair for itself, robbing the metaphorical devil and his underlings of their power. In the space of 3 days, this has escalated from a curiosity to a mystery to an imperative concern and narrative question for just about everybody in the setting. The Vanguard, Eris, Sloane, the Hive Gods, the Echo of Navigation, and even apparently the Winnower itself. All of these parties are being impacted by the arrival of this new unknown master of the Taken. And the craziest part of all is that we still don't know who this person or what this thing is. We just have theories. In the last 24 hours alone, I scraped the comment sections of videos and looked through things and read through possible theories, and let me tell you, opinions are all over the place, primarily because nobody knows. In the space of those 24 hours, I saw suggestions including the idea that it was a remnant of Akka, the Knotworm within the Vex network, thanks, that's partly my fault that that's out there, an unknown worm god survivor of Fundament, Teox, Nezarec, Toland, one of the 9, Skira the Watcher, a remnant of Rolk, and about a dozen more. The common thread with all of these is that nobody knows who or what this force is. There are some theories that make more sense than others, but the force remains relatively mysterious. We simply know it for the myriad of eyes and tentacles that are pouring forth from the Ascendant Plane into our reality. That and the new Dire Taken, who share that similar aesthetic as we find on the Dreadnought. Today, I'm going to go over some new information that we've learned from Oryx's dialogue. I'm going to talk about one of the other lore tabs that exists in Act 2, which includes what I think might be the entity itself potentially speaking, and I'm going to talk about a new lore book that I've seen no one else talk about, that shows the perspective of the Taken as they raise their voices in a hollow chant to their new master. Really quickly though, if I had to sum up all that I've learned in a single digestible notion, Toland once said that it was the architecture of these spaces that there must always be a strongest one. It was this reason he gave when he stated that we should take up the mantle of the Taken King. When we killed Oryx, we refused to take up that mantle. And from that one choice, someone, or maybe worse, something, might have seen the opportunity to occupy that yawning power vacuum for itself, and become the new ruler of the Taken, the new sovereign. A a silent king to rule these Taken and to reign as the next great tyrant of the deep. So, let's start at the top. Oryx has a bunch of new dialogue from the Court of Blades, which Destiny Lore Vault began uploading as of a few nights ago. Some of that dialogue makes further commentary on this idea that not all of the Taken are responding to Oryx. In fact, it's the Echo of Navigation itself that is telling us all of this. Here, take a listen to these 3 snippets.
A shift has occurred within the deep. What once offered recognition is now tinged with apathy. Arrest its attention. Taken slain here are not all called back to me. There's another well of want, drawing them in. I shall seek it out. Here you will learn to cleave flesh from will. They are lured by a whisper, sunken into their mind.
This would be bad enough on its own. A confirmation from the Echo of Navigation here tells us that there is something within the deep that is rising to control the Taken. Xivu Arath has a few words to say on this matter as well, though, ironically, for that statement it is not voiced, of course. So, here are some things she's said. Warrior of the Sky, your will wavers. I feel the Taken recoil from your claim. Xivu also has a pretty in-depth description of this unknown master of the Taken, and yet it is still an abstract one. So abstract, in fact, that it sounds practically eldritch. She says, there is a wound in the deep, a fissure of lust and hate and greed. Its shape defies description like color in the dark. So I cannot find it, cannot crush it. Consider my brother's throne, Sky Warrior. Forever a blade in the hands of anyone else could describe a new high war. Here, Xivu also gets to the bloody heart of the matter. This new foe, this unknown master, is a potential claimant to the throne of Oryx and the mantle of the Taken King. Oryx's memory within the Echo seems to also confirm this with a statement of its own. Take a listen.
A challenger awaits. Only one may take my throne and quell the unrest in the Ascendant Plane.
So yet again, it appears that Toland may well have been right. There must always be a strongest one, for it is the nature of these spaces. And in our absence, even though we are the heir apparent, something else has arisen to take that place. But it gets worse than that, and this is the most shocking revelation to me at very least. There is a voice line here from the Echo of Navigation that seems to imply that this unknown presence is impacting the deep to a degree that the Winnower itself should be able to do. If that is true, it's laying claim to some of the abilities that the Winnower should have, including the ability to carve paths, whatever that means. Remember that this could be anything. Carving paths, for me, makes me wonder if it's talking about opening up portals between the Ascendant Plane and reality. But again, the important bit is not what that ability is, but the idea that normally that is an ability that is reserved for the Winnower. Listen to what the Echo of Navigation has to say.
I know the wills of every knife in this realm. I hear them scream as the strong metastasize the weak. And I feel a strength I do not know, carving paths that should belong to the Winnower, but don't.
That is the most distressing line of it all. And again, let me put that in perspective for you. A new, strongest presence has arisen within the Ascendant Plane and is claiming the mantle of the Taken King, or is attempting to do so. It is described by Xivu Arath as a wound within the Ascendant Plane, and its power and abilities are so great that it's starting to take on and carve paths that should belong to the Winnower. And remember that the Winnower is not just some entity, it is the same godlike figure that is almost certainly behind the creation of not only our greatest foes in the form of Oryx and the Witness, but also, if its accounts are to be believed, the universe itself. There's a word for what this thing is, and it goes further than the idea of it being a claimant to the throne of the Taken King. It goes further than the idea of it simply being the knife. If it is doing what I think it's doing, and if it's starting to exercise control over what should belong to the Winnower within the Ascendant Plane, then this thing is no mere claimant, it is a usurper. And not just a usurper of kings and thrones or other mortal constructs. It is a usurper of gods and dimensions and the fundamental fabric of the universe. This thing is like a Lovecraftian god. It is angry. It is a pit of hate. It is a wound in the Ascendant Plane. And nobody knows where to find it. We just know that it's there. All this on its own would be troubling enough, and frankly, it's made worse by the fact that we have no clue who or what this entity is. But I think we do have a few likely instances in the lore where we can see a little bit more from the perspective of this thing. I struggle to call it a person because we don't know what this thing is. It could be that it's just some great entity that defies our explanation and our understanding. It could be something personal. But the first of the places where we can find some influence of this within the lore is the Barrow Dyad. Now, I'm not going to go over that because I already covered it in a video all of its own. Watch that if you're interested, but just remember that this is quite possibly the entity that drew us down this path. Previously, I thought that was the Winnower because, well, any other voice within the deep, given that it wasn't the Echo of Navigation, was likely to be the Winnower. And now this thing has kind of stepped into its place. It is something that supposedly is the source of the call. Also, just a little note, this is me going off script. Remember the Barrow Dyad mission where eventually we end up sealing that massive area at the corruption core of the Dreadnought? Yeah, in the Path of Ambition we unseal that same area. In one sense it is resolve and we flush whatever was the Taken presence into the Ascendant Plane. And in the other instance, we unseal that door and step into the Ascendant Plane. And you can tell this because briefly we get torn between dimensions. So yeah, not looking good on that front of things. Barrow Dyad may well have been a trap still, I stand by that idea, but I think it might have been something which was laid as a foundation from this strange entity to us. The other major place within the lore for some insight into this being, though, is the new glaive from the Heretical Arsenal, Refusal of the Call. It's always the glaives, man, I swear. The glaive itself has a lore tab that speaks to the Taken and seemingly assesses their situation. And just for the sake of honesty, we're still not sure who this is. There is a small chance that this could be the Winnower, if it is indeed the Winnower talking in the Destiny 1 Grimoire cards that speak about the individual Taken entities. I say that because, well, it's formatted very similarly to this one. It even ends in the same kind of way. Sort of a take up this knife. It is shaped like brackets, whatever is relevant to that being. That being said, there was never any true confirmation that this was the Winnower, and, well, I've loved making that assumption because it seems less and less likely every day that it was Oryx. But with everything going on now, with the idea that there is a new entity out there, I have no idea who was talking in those Grimoire cards. And honestly, I have no idea who's talking here. All I'm saying is, keep your mind open to the possibility that this isn't exactly who we think it is. Especially if the Winnower's role is being usurped. Who knows what this could be. Anyway, this is the lore tab for Refusal of the Call. Don't listen. You are taken, dark and nameless, shifting in the corners of the world, unmade by your god. Oryx, the Lord of Shapes, cut you into your present form. Wielding Willbreaker, he broke you. To be taken is to accept the knife, accept the pain, accept the sweet pang of a question that cannot be denied. Oryx, the Lord of Shapes, is dead. No will can replace the void of your own. What is left for you? Who are you without the commanding will? There is a new hand on the knife's hilt. It calls to you in the hollow chambers of your dying heart. The knife offers new purpose. Will you accept it? Now, this doesn't tell us much other than confirming once again that this new entity is indeed a new commanding will that is seeking to control the Taken. If it is referring to itself in the third person, which is not impossible, we can at least tell that they have a penchant for being a bit cocky. Then again, this could quietly be the Winnower again speaking within this lore entry, describing the new individual who has taken up the knife within their hands. And, well, maybe that does make sense. Whether this factors into its designs or not is yet to be seen, but if this is encroaching upon the territory of the Winnower, I'm not so sure. This would normally be where the story ends for the moment, but in my tired and delirious state one night, I stumbled across a not-so-well-hidden secret in the Nether, which, again, I still haven't seen anyone talk about. I don't know if this is another Vesper's Host situation, where I'm just the first person to discover something and put it online when it's, like, right in front of our faces, but, yeah, I found a new lore book, and there's some dialogue from Sloane that comes along with this too. Basically, you discover this by going into the Nether, go to the Mausoleum, and then enter this corridor passageway here. Martin's going to be rolling the tape of what this looks like. If you have completed Act 1 by the looks of things, you can just hit this console here, and then walk through this portal. And now you're here. 2 chests, and opening one of them gives you some dialogue from Sloane and gives you some new lore books. The dialogue is not voiced, but it reads as follows. Guardian, I mentioned that there's a new influence on the Taken, like feedback over a comms channel. It's been getting stronger and gaining clarity, like a radio signal gradually tuning in. I didn't want to mention this until I was sure, but it has a familiar rhythm to it. A cadence. I'm not sure how, but I'm afraid a Dread Commander gained access to the Taken. Keep this between us for now. I don't want to raise alarm unnecessarily. Just keep your eyes open. This bit of dialogue alone gives us potentially all the hints we need, and potentially none of them. We know that the Dread Commander, Kate Eyre, or who we presume is Kate Eyre, has been commanding the Taken since we saw her doing just that against Eris and the Drifter at the start of the episode. There's an outside possibility that this means Kate Eyre is the source of the eyes, and that this is a mostly sorted mystery. But I don't think I agree with this assertion, and there's a simple reason why. Namely, Kate Eyre is just a subjugator. Now, she might be the very first subjugator, meaning that she's a lot more powerful than any of her peers, and that is a valid point to raise. But the level of power we're looking at here does not make sense for Kate Eyre. We're looking at something that is capable of claiming the throne of the Taken King, and is starting to crowd in on the Winnower's authority and the power within the deep. This thing has been described by Zivor Arath as not only something that she cannot find like color in the dark, but also as a wound within the deep itself. Pull me wrong here if you want, but I don't think that something of that description comes from a simple subjugator. No. If you ask me, whilst Kate Eyre is probably the commander of the Taken and the Dread within the Dreadnought, I think our subjugator friend here is just a captain to a general. Who is that general? Well, that's not been revealed to us yet. But I do not believe she is the one in charge. I believe she is a subordinate. This isn't all we get from this secret area in the Nether, though. We also get those 2 lorebook entries in an all-new lorebook called The Songs of Dissent. And for those wondering, that is not dissent spelt with D-I-S-S-E-N-T, as in to disagree with something quite vocally. It is dissent like a submarine, going into the deep. To sum it up briefly, these books appear to be written from the perspective of the Taken. At least the 2 entries we have so far definitely are. They make for a fascinating read. The entries are titled First Song of the Taken and Song for the Knife. The first one, First Song of the Taken, reads as follows. Sing in the dark a new song, a wordless song. Raise the tocsin and the bone flute, speak in the voice of the drum. Sing for the loss of the king, sing for the loss of Willbreaker. Oryx, our geometer, shaped us. Before him, we were nothing. Without him, we are nothing. We are nothing in his command. The royal knife cuts away excess and leaves sweet pain. Willbreaker's blade is the length of the universe. It blots out stars and gives shade to the weary. All who tire of life and its struggle, all the sapient and the cursed give way to the knife and its eclipsing will. Who are we without the Lord of Shapes? What hand will guide us? What knife will cut away that which we do not miss? What nerves will spark and signal our limbs to move? The king is agony, his absence worse. We look to the dark, we look for another, one to raise the blade of shaping. Sing in the dark, a song of waiting, a patient song. Pluck at the hair-strung harp, cry out to the depths. Sing until an answer comes. The answer comes. The answer comes. We will it. The answer comes. This first song of the Taken is a hymn of lamentation. It's a song made to voice their suffering. It shows the pain we've inflicted upon the Taken since we destroyed Oryx nearly a decade ago. It appears that they have felt weak and listless without a strong enough leader to guide them. Without the shade of Willbreaker's eclipsing darkness, they seethe without purpose. This prayer through song was a prayer for deliverance, for the Taken have always sought out a master to lead them, and without that overriding will, they are more nothing than they usually are. Through this song in the dark that they performed, they cried out to the deep. They willed something to answer their call and continue to harrow them until they were made sharper. They wished for an answer, and after 10 long years, it appears that they've found it. A new hand which takes up the knife left by us after we defeated Oryx. Now the Taken have begun to sing for this knife, this new threat, this unknown master. That second song, the second entry in this lore book, is recorded as follows. A call from the empty chambers, from the small and the weak. Reach into the deep, siblings, reach into the deep, cousins, taken from among the many stars by the king, shaped anew and set adrift. We were nothing. We are nothing. We will be nothing. Raise your soundless voices, raise your arms in prayer signs. Feel the curdling in the deepest dark, a new shape for the god. Multiply your nullity, expand the nothing of your heart. Every night anew, every evening again. Let vacancy call a new tenant. Our plea begs an answer. Our objection creates mastery. Our vessel without a pilot demands a shipmaster's hand. We were nothing. We are nothing. We will be nothing. Repetition is our guide. Make habit of prayer. Perform ritual, siblings. Speak liturgy, cousins. And feel the pull of the king's throne. As star forms from dust, a new voice rises from the sea of screams. It answers our belief. It rises to our song. Our shipwreck gone adrift will be guided to shore. We were nothing. Command us. We are nothing. Command us. We will be nothing. Command us. O new silent voice in the dark, be our will, our guide, our king. Command us. This second hymn's wordings seem to make one thing very clear. They also make something a little easier to speculate on. The thing they make clear is that whatever this new godlike figure was, it rose from the Sea of Screams itself. The roiling darkness that surrounds you when you gaze out upon the Ascendant Plane, that turbulent, dark, unending storm, that is the Sea of Screams. It is what lies between the throne worlds of the Ascendant Plane and the ley lines that traverse it. It is what Mara Sov traversed through when she returned from Oryx's throne to her own. It is the sea in which the spit of land that Toland claims can be found. It is a realm of unknowns and a place where only darkness reigns. But from that certain notion, I want to discuss one other interesting idea. In the first song of The Taken, there's a line that reads, the answer comes, we will it, the answer comes. In the second entry, The Song for the Knife, there's a few lines that sort of echo this idea. Those lines read, feel the curdling in the deepest dark, a new shape for the god. And our plea begs an answer, our objection creates mastery. And finally, and feel the pull of the king's throne as star forms from dust, a new voice rises from the Sea of Screams. I want to put forward this idea, even though I personally doubt it myself, because it feels wild. But doesn't all of that make it sound as though the Taken created this entity themselves? The entity is described as a pit of lust and hate and greed by Xivu Arath. The Taken themselves are described as an unending hunger, which could align with all of these ideas, if stretched somewhat. And then, it's also described by Xivu Arath as being nearly impossible to find, like color in the dark, and the Taken keep on describing themselves as nothing. We were nothing, we are nothing, we will be nothing. What if the Taken's need for a master and their combined prayers and power was enough to eventually coalesce into something that exists now within the Sea of Screams and rises to rule over the Taken? After all, the Ascendant Plane is a place that can be reshaped according to one's will. I've long referred to it as a psychomutable dimension, aka a space that can be shaped by one's own willpower. This, after all, is how throne worlds work, and it seems no different for the Ascendant Plane. If the will of the Taken was to have a leader, and if they prayed enough, it might have just been possible for them to create such a leader through the sheer power of their own will. Now, this is where I need to cast some doubt on this theory, because the Taken are the antithesis of will. They have no desires for themselves except to serve their master. Such a lack of capacity might then seem to indicate that they would be incapable of summoning such a god into existence. It's also worth noting that the act of creation itself tends to be a facet of what happens with the light within the physical universe. But then again, this is the Ascendant Plane, and it is a space with its own rules and its own laws. So who knows, perhaps the emptiness and the nothingness that the Taken felt, that they sang out for, hollowed something out within the Ascendant Plane, a wound that has now manifested and is alive, something that has come to take over, and which is claiming the knife for itself. Ultimately, regardless of any theories, any lore books, any bits of dialogue, any lore tabs, all of this leads me back to the same set of conclusions that we had at the start. The Taken have a new master. Whatever it is attempting to take its place upon the throne of the Taken King. If we're also to extrapolate that one line of dialogue, this new being is potentially claiming some of the power and the role that once belonged to the Winnower, carving paths that should belong to it. And above all, we do not know who or what this new unknown master is. But there are hints, there are clues. Wherever we see eyes, wherever we go and see tentacles, we see its influence. It appears to be the one that is behind the aversion anchors that are being dropped all over the system. And we now have a direct tie-in to the perspective of the Taken being commanded by it, the Songs of Descent, which will unveil more of the mysteries of this force. As we find more of them, I shall look into more of them. But until we understand more about this, all we can do is watch, wait, and be ready. A new power is rising, and the scope of this power is something genuinely unprecedented. I have to say this also now, because I feel like it is important to say for the point of perspective. Bungie, in their writing, has always given us hints. We've always had teasers, we've always had a nod here or there. For the first time in my 12 years covering this franchise, I have no answers. That is equal parts delightful and terrifying. A presence with this much power leaves marks upon the universe and stories in its wake. That is how it's always been. Beings with colossal power leave ripples across the universe, ripples that affect everyone. Even we have done this with our actions. But this time, there are no such ripples. Just a gaping maw with endless questions. This time, the presence before us simply is. I have no explanation for it. No one does. If they're telling you otherwise, they're lying. Nobody has enough tangible proof to nail down an idea truly of what this thing is. We only have guesses. And that is the most refreshed I felt about the lore in a long, long time. Bungie said some time ago that they were leaning into the world of mysteries with Destiny, and they wanted the lore to delight us, surprise us, and offer us new glimpses into crazy ideas. And this is the most convinced I've been that they are doing that in a while. More, please. This is excellent stuff. Anyway, if you enjoyed the video, long as it was, go ahead and leave a like and leave your own thoughts down below in the comments section. I named off a bunch of theories of who this might be. I think my current top contenders are probably one of the odd worm god cousins that is unnamed, the Not Worm from the Vex Network, Skira the Watcher, and Nezarek, but who knows? Maybe it's the 9. I don't know, I have no clue. Maybe you have a better idea. Let me know in the comments section below. Where are you putting your chips down? If you enjoyed the video, again, a like is appreciated, and you can subscribe for more lore from universes near and far. You can also hit the bell next to subscribe to turn on those email notifications. But as per usual, know that your viewership as always has been quite enough for me, and that in the meantime my name is Bife. Per audacia ad astra. I'll see you starside.